Welcome to our joint webinar, Cloud Technology, a Game Changer for Hospitality, brought to you by Stay in Touch, Lightspeed, and Snapshot. I'm your host, Frigola, Digital Marketing Manager at Stay in Touch, and I'm joined by my panel of experts. First up, Yash Shah, founder and CEO of Stay in Touch. Yash has over 20 years of experience providing tech-based solutions to hotels, first with Micro Systems as a VP of Global Product Development and Strategy for the Lodging and E-commerce division, and now with Stay in Touch, offering a cloud-based PMS to help streamline hotel operations. Next up, joining us from Snapshot is Janelle Clark. Janelle, a hotel revenue management expert with a great passion for passing on knowledge to the next generation through coaching and workshops. Janelle is currently Snapshot's head of education, helping hoteliers better understand how to make the most of the complex hospitality technology on the market today. And lastly, not least, Mike Monaghan, joining us from Lightspeed, product manager and online marketer who provides leadership to the Lightspeed restaurant product team, from guiding the development team at Lightspeed to providing creative feedback to designers and training sales teams on product knowledge. Mike does a little bit of everything. He has 10 years of experience as a leader in marketing, design, and product management for growing and innovative tech companies. Before we get started, I want to thank our audience for joining us and encourage you all to participate in the discussion. You can submit your questions, comments, concerns, or any insight you may have throughout the webinar and throughout the discussion. We will certainly make time to address your questions at the end of the presentation. All right, so let's briefly touch on the agenda and then get right to it. We'll begin the discussion by addressing why hotels and restaurants should move away from on-premise hardware and into the cloud. Our panel will give their take on the impact of cloud technology on hospitality operations, enhancing the customer experience with cloud capabilities, and maximizing cloud benefits with integrations. And we'll then get to our question and answer portion. There will also be 2 audience polls that I encourage everyone to partake in. So here we go. I'll start off. I'll pose the first question, our first discussion point to Yash. Why should hotels move away from on-premise hardware and invest into cloud technology?
Thanks, Free. I think that's a very good question. Start with that. Obviously, most hotels have their software today still in the basement of the hotel, which creates a lot of friction. There's a danger in there. There is a lot of maintenance requirements in that basement. I need to make sure that the software stays up to date and that it, first of all, runs on a daily basis. Most hotels don't have any IT infrastructure in place anymore. They don't have people that can constantly monitor those servers and make sure they're always up. And then integrating with other parties, such as a point of sales or such as a revenue management system or such as a BI tool, is very complicated when the locations are physically in different places and where different PCs are required. When you look at the cloud and the technology that's available in cloud, over the last couple of years, initially I think the hotels were a little slow, or hotel software vendors were a little slow in adopting cloud technology, but over the last couple of years you can clearly see a growing majority in hotel software vendors getting to the cloud and actually providing cloud-only solutions, which then in turn are much easier to connect, which I think is very important in hospitality. The hotel property management systems need to connect to many different things, and when that can be done in an easier way without necessarily the need of the hotel member itself to be involved in that, that would make things simply made a lot easier. So, in short, when things go into the cloud, there's less IT distraction. The focus can be more on servicing the guest, and I think most importantly, integrating other technologies such as the point of sales help are much easier to do when both systems are in the cloud.
And Mike, you want to touch on this point?
Yeah, I think moving to the cloud is just very important for restaurants, both hotels as well. I think just in terms of the actual data that they're trying to protect, that's something that when it's in the cloud, it's not something that they have to rely on the actual hardware itself. So I think moving to the cloud is essential for restaurants and hotels.
For me, as a revenue manager, it's always about the data. And the fact that I can access my data from anywhere I am, anywhere, whether I'm at home on my phone, if I'm at a conference, I can log in, I can check immediately the status of the hotel. I can see the availability, I can check the pickup, I can see the prices that we're offering, and I can see all of that from wherever I am. To me, as a revenue guy, that's one of the most important things, just that accessibility. I think if I think about a date like New Year's Eve, where availability and prices are changing even during the day, once you've left the hotel, no one really wants to be there New Year's Eve, so we want to leave, but then we can still monitor, and if changes need to be made, whether that's on availability or price, you can do that from wherever you are. So for me, that's certainly one of the big benefits.
And so all great points. And before we move on to our next section, which is going to be the bulk of what we talk about in this webinar, I'd like to have the audience join in now and participate in our first poll. How efficient is your operations with your current on-premise hardware? I'll give you guys a couple of minutes just to fill out that poll, and then we'll launch that. Everyone will see the results, and we'll have our panelists address some of those concerns. Right, so I will be closing the poll now and then sharing the results for everyone to see. How efficient is your operations with your current on-premise hardware? 15% say excellent, our operations run smoothly. 48% good, our operations are pretty adequate. 33% fair, we experience frequent hiccups but manage to get by. And then 4% say poor, our operations are very inefficient. So this segues us into the next portion of this webinar, the impact of cloud technology on hospitality operations. We'll start off with Mike touching on the streamlining operations.
Yeah, so I think just in terms of being able to manage and monitor your restaurant or hotel remotely is really important. Being able to view the performance in real time and react to it. So in terms of labor costs, if you have in a restaurant, if you have staff that based on sales you don't need at this point, you can actually decide to cut staff by calling into the restaurant. You can add new products or modify services on the go. So in a restaurant, for example, if you're changing your wine list or your specials of the day, it's something you can do remotely, especially if you have multiple establishments that you're trying to manage. It makes it much easier to be doing that in the cloud and to be propagating products or information across all of those locations. Also, in terms of configuration, troubleshooting the system is also much easier. You can do that remotely. Some systems actually allow you to access the configuration or the devices themselves remotely. So that really has a big impact on the day-to-day operations in both restaurants and hotels.
All right, moving on to the data security and reliability. Why is it more accessible via cloud and more reliable in terms of data?
Well, I immediately think of experiences that I've had working with traditional property-based systems when the server crashes. And you call out the engineer, he finds the issue, he rebuilds the server, the PMS company then dial in, reinstall the software, and in the meantime, your system is down and you can't access your data. And we know worst case scenario, this could be 2 or 3 days when the server's down and we've got no PMS, for example. This is when we also find out about our own backup process. And this is when we actually discover we haven't been doing any backup for 6 months because the latest change of staff, the last night manager left, nobody's taken it over, so we have nothing. Or worst case scenario, we are doing it, but because it's never been tested, we've never had to validate that we're actually, it's working properly, then we find out that we don't have a backup, we've lost that data. So for me, for a cloud-based PMS vendor, it's key for them that they've got their system up and running. So they are extremely motivated to make sure there's an infrastructure in place to protect against downtime and to build safety nets in to keep this running. So they're also responsible for backup and much better qualified to do that and to look after that data and security than the hotel would be. As we've mentioned, quite often now hotels don't have IT staff on board. So from my perspective, it's why should we worry? Let the cloud-based systems worry about this. Let them deal with it. This is what they're good at, and let us focus on running our hotel and driving our business and looking after our guests. So that would be the first thing as far as security is concerned. And again, going back to the point of data, the more systems that speak to each other, the better, as far as I'm concerned. We need as much seamless automation as we can get within the hotel. A big challenge within hotels is that our systems don't speak to each other. The PMS doesn't speak to the POS system. The PMS doesn't speak to the CRS. The OTAs or the channel manager don't speak to the PMS. And you've got reservation guys sitting still manually putting reservations into the PMS system. And the amount of time that takes every day. And if you think about the time it takes us to prepare for meetings, and we're pulling information out of 4, 5, 6 different systems for our daily, weekly meetings, with cloud-based systems, with that integration, that just takes that time away and allows us then to focus much more on the guests and what we can do to make the experience and the business better, rather than spending this time trying to manually bring all of our systems together.
And I want to transition to cutting costs and generating more revenue. A lot of times when we talk about efficiency with cloud-based technology, we talk about streamlining operations, but how can cloud technology actually make costs more efficient for a hotel or a restaurant? Yeah.
So obviously, a lot of people that use cloud applications talk to the monthly fees, and they've been told that they have to pay per room per monthly fee, which sounds at first much more expensive than having a license-based system that you pay a maintenance fee on. However, the hidden cost of actually maintaining an efficient IT operation, as we just saw, 50% of the people are having an efficient IT operation. The hidden cost of that is up to 50-40% of the standard cost of a PMS or point of sales or a BI system for that matter. So when hotels they should not only look at the cost of the actual cloud application, but they should also look at the cost of everything else around it that keeps it going. And to Janelle's earlier point, when working at Micros many years ago, I was faced often when people wanted to inquire about a hosted solution or a premises-in solution. We were often confronted with the comment that in hosted solutions would be down much more often than premises-based solution, which is not the case actually. The reality through some research at Microsoft at the time was that premises-based solutions are about 50% more down than hosted-based solution. And as you always want to have your data available, but most importantly, you want to be able to use that data to drive more revenue and to please your customer. So with SaaS, the maintenance fees are eliminated. You do have to deal with the monthly cost, but many of the SaaS companies also include ongoing upgrades or ongoing maintenance efforts done by a person to keep you guys going and to keep you providing the newest data as part of that SaaS fees, which on premises solutions, that's not the case. You usually have to fly somebody in, you have to bring somebody in to add something new to the system, and all of that goes away with the cloud. I think the other very important aspect of cloud technology, and therefore I think also mobile, is that because of cloud, we actually have mobile today, because it's impossible to virtually connect mobile devices of both guests and staff to a premises-based solution. That would be far too insecure and far too difficult to achieve. But with the cloud, it can be achieved. And as everybody's moving to a more mobile solution and everybody's doing more and more of their smartphone or on their smartphone, or as hotels want to see what they're getting into, cloud solutions provide better tools to enable upsell of early check-in, upgrades, or late checkout, for example, because they can very simply be sent to the guest's smartphone. As also, if you look at BI tools, because cloud applications can integrate much easier, they can collect data and they can therefore provide better decision analytics for hotels, revenue managers to drive revenue forward and to make the right choice when it comes to rates and those things. I think customer loyalty, because systems are generally much more available in a premises-based system, you can provide a better service, which results usually in better guest engagement and usually in guests returning to the hotel. A good check-in experience is very important on TripAdvisor. It's just the same as a checkout experience. So you want to make sure that your systems are always available, that they're light and easy to understand. And another important example that we recently experienced between cloud systems at our company is that we integrate with many cloud systems, such as, for example, Snapshot and Lightspeed. But another example would be Checkmate, which is a messaging system, and it's a cloud interface to another cloud system, and basically the hotel was able to instigate and activate the interface to the text messaging system from Checkmate without any involvement for both vendors, because it's very simple. It's cloud to cloud. There's a few buttons on the screen that allow the hotels to switch on interfaces or switch them off without having to go through the expense of bringing somebody in to make that happen. So I think, ease of use, ability to easily push upsells and upgrades through solutions such as mobile, as well as a tight integration to revenue solutions such as Duetto or Snapshot are very important. And then I think also the ongoing interaction, the much easier and smoother interaction between a point of sales and a PMS system allow for a much greater data collection and therefore a future of loyalty and ability to understand guest habits.
Let's move on to actually enhancing the customer experience with cloud capabilities. A lot of people think that technology actually hinders the guest experience because it makes things more impersonal. How can technology actually play a part in enhancing the guest experience? Janelle, we'll start off with you. Having better data allows us to better understand the guest needs, but how so?
Well, I think as Josh was just talking about then, picking up the guest data, being able to use that, being able to pull that across different systems and have that together, being able to use that information that you've got to then make the guest experience better. An example that I've got, I'm based in London and our office is in Berlin. So I go to Berlin every 3 or 4 weeks and I stay in the same hotel, which is 50 meters away from the office. And every time I go through the same lengthy check-in process. I queue, I fill in the reg card, I go through the whole, this is where breakfast is. I know all of that. And if I could check in on my phone and I knew that even coming from the office to the hotel, that I could check in on my phone, that I could use my phone to get into my room. I have room service dinner. I'm a creature of habit. I have a room service dinner on my first evening there. Every time I have the same thing. And again, if I could order that so that by the time I got to the hotel, checked in, went to my room and my Caesar salad was there, how happy would I be? So it's technology behind all of that that would create that actually a better customer experience for me than having to go through this same check-in process every time at a hotel that I stay regularly with. So I think, that's definitely one way of using that, the systems that make it easier and faster to collect guest data and preferences so that we can actually anticipate the guest needs before they even arrive with us. Our guests want that personalized service and something that goes above and beyond. And I think there's a lot of investment in the area of improving and the customer journey from when the first touch point with the hotel. There's a lot of work going on there with cloud-based systems that can absolutely enhance the experience.
Yeah, talk a little bit about why choice of service is so important, how cloud technology allows you to, give your guests a choice of service.
I think choice of service to me is one of the most important things because, as we all know, we all use our mobile devices to a large extent. But then when it comes to the hotel or restaurant experience, there is always this or this need of having to engage with the guest on a personal level. I think we also know that not all guests are necessarily interested in doing that on a personal level. So I think cloud capabilities or cloud applications that have the capability to provide mobile can offer both. They can allow a hotel or a restaurant, for that matter, to engage with the guest, at the front desk or in the restaurant, but they can also allow the hotel guest or restaurant guest, for that matter, to do all of that themselves by self-ordering from their smartphone. And I think, I've seen Lightspeed, for example, has great mobile capabilities for hotels and staff and guests to interact with each other and make some of that self-service component come forward. Mike, I'm not sure if you want to add something to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to just expand on, being able to either check in or book appointments for hotel services in a restaurant. What's interesting when I go to our customers that really have embraced the mobile aspect of cloud technology is that, you can be at the table I love when a waiter can come to the table and actually explain to me the specials of the day, knows the wine list, can take time to actually talk about the wine list. And what's great is that they can take more time to actually spend with the customers because they're ordering tableside on an iPad or any tablet device. And your drinks are actually starting to come. So they can spend more time actually talking about the food or talking about the wines because they're punching things in and another staff member can actually start bringing them to the table. So it's quite a great experience. I know some people think it's impersonal, but I actually quite like the experience when a restaurant really embraces the mobile aspect. I find it quite interesting and enjoyable.
And to move away from that discussion, hitting on the maximizing cloud benefits with integration, Mike, I want you to speak on this because there's such a rich source of outside, services out there, integrations that cloud technology can tap into. What is the impact of that?
It's just great because all cloud platforms usually have a set of APIs or developer tools, and they really put themselves in a position where they become part of an ecosystem. So an ecosystem of different applications that can enhance the customer experience. They can share data. So from loyalty to reservations, reviews, marketing automation, similar to what we have with PMS integrations or what we have with Stay in Touch. The data it's really powerful what can be done across platforms, and this rich customer profile that can be built by sharing data from a restaurant, from a review site, and really building this customer profile that's transparent and available to anybody who's taking part or connected through the cloud, through these APIs. For instance, our integration with Stay in Touch, we can actually pass data in terms of favorite drinks or dishes, and then hotels can actually tailor that guest experience accordingly. So I think being a part of that ecosystem is really such a huge advantage and not something that always the end customer sees or understands. So I think it's important for all of us to educate and let them know that they're really subject to these rich customer profiles.
And yeah, let's touch on what are the benefits of always being up to date with the latest software.
I think the benefits of that are huge. Not to say that every customer would always use every feature that a hotel software or software in general offers, but if you're looking for something and you have a premises-based solution, you want to do something new, you usually have to wait a long time. You have to ask for it to make sure it happens. You have to get somebody to come by to install it for you. So you could be 6-12 months out before you can do a new thing in your hotel or in your restaurant, for that matter. When it comes to the cloud, usually those vendors provide new features every 4 to 5 weeks on an ongoing basis, and they're just there for you to start using. So I think being up to date is very important. But going a little bit back to what Mike was talking about ecosystems of APIs that put stuff together. I think that's, compared to, let's say, 10, 15 years ago when we had some large hotel software vendors that would try to do everything and not do everything pretty well. I think today we can basically offer, as an ecosystem of vendors, can provide hotels and restaurants with a collection of quality vendors that focus on certain aspects of the guest journey and allow easy integration of those to make it a seamless process. And I think all of that comes very well together, for example, with a BI tool, and which is then again very important for revenue management. And I think Janelle can certainly add some of those important aspects to that. Collecting data and having certain APIs working well together allows things such as Snapshot to integrate with many other data points that enhance the guest experience potentially. Janelle?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the more data that we have, bringing it together and being able to spend time actually looking at the data, analyzing it and using it, rather than spending the time, as I mentioned earlier, actually pulling it from separate systems and then collating it all into one Excel spreadsheet or whatever it is that you use. If you've got that in front of you, it allows you then to spend that time much better analyzing, looking at the results, understanding what this means to your business, looking from a revenue management perspective. How does that how does that combine with my marketing effort, with my what's happening on my website this week, with my social media, for example? I need to be monitoring all of that activity, and I need everything brought into one place. And with a BI tool such as ours, where you've got those APIs in place, we can bring that data. I think the time that we save is a huge benefit there. And those integrations are available with a more traditional property-based system. There may be great tools out there in the market, but it's going to be very limiting actually which tools you can use. So that's always going to be a challenge, I think.
So we talked about the impact of cloud technology in hospitality operations, how it can enhance customer experience, the integration part of it. Let's talk a little bit about the challenges. And before we do that, I want to launch our next poll. I'd like, again, for our audience to participate. What is the biggest challenge to implementing cloud technology in your hotel or restaurant? If you guys want to take a moment to participate. All right, here we go. Sharing the results now. What is the biggest challenge to implementing cloud technology in your hotel or restaurant? 5% say costs are too high. 24% say data security, fear of limited access by IT. 43% choosing the right tech provider, and 29% justifying the ROI. Because there could have been other there. But if you have anything else you'd like to add in there, you can always ask a question or make a comment, and we'll get to that, of course. And so the opportunities and challenges, we saw where the concern lies with our audience here. Jas, if you want to speak a little bit about some of the biggest challenges, whether or not they are legitimate concerns or they're myths that you'd like to debunk now.
I think that from the poll that I saw, so cost does not seem to be an issue, which I think is a good thing, because over the last couple of years, I think education about SaaS has taught hotels that cost is actually relative affordable, if not more affordable over time. The concern with data security, if I go back to the first poll where I saw that about 50% of the people thought that their IT organization was below or even worse than average when it comes to the way it was run. And if I look back at my 20 years at Micros previously, then most of the IT concerns during those 20 years were around security and reliability, which, again, this is based on premises-based systems. It's very difficult for hotels to provide when they control their own destiny, so to speak, with having everything on their own service, to control security and always be up to date with the latest rules and requirements, for example, for PCI. And at the same time, it's very difficult for hotels to always have a backup available. Janelle mentioned that earlier. Very often it happens that hotels think they do their backup nightly, but the reality is that it's not being done nightly. And then they may have lost weeks of data that they will never be able to retrieve when something goes wrong. So I would think on the data security, that should not have to be a concern these days anymore. Most of those cloud providers have very strong processes in place, and it's not only the software technology provider you're dealing with, but it's actually the cloud provider that the software provider uses. For example, Amazon or Rackspace, that have fully controlled and secure processes in place to ensure that their software technologies and the software vendors that they work together with have everything in a good place and are healthy as well as secure. Obviously, downtime is much more limited than it used to be, and cloud applications do have always backups available. They have people in place that do nothing but controlling the backups. So I think that's not a very concern. That shouldn't have to be a big concern. I think people can be comfortable that if they select the right provider for that matter, and I think that's maybe something we can all say something to. The few things I would say to that is make sure you select a provider that is running on a cloud environment that's well known. For example, Rackspace, Amazon, Azure for that matter. But also make sure, and this is maybe something Mike can elaborate on a little further, that they have a good set of public APIs that allow you to connect in. So, Mike, do you want to take it from here?
Absolutely. In terms of the APIs, definitely it makes that access to that data easier. To touch a bit on the ROI, I think that it's misunderstood and sometimes misevaluated. I think there's hidden returns on the investment in terms of visibility on labor costs. So being able to see in real time what your sales are in relation to your actual labor and being able to react to that. So I don't know if a lot of merchants are actually seeing that as a direct return on investment. And also, Josh mentioned this earlier, but the ability to upsell. So the whole mobile aspect of a cloud platform and being able to upsell, by selling something in your hotel room, for example, or being able to push something directly to a mobile device. And just in general, the improved customer experience, I think that's not always looked at as a direct impact on investment, but it definitely has an impact on being able to spend more time with customers. They're more encouraged to spend money and spend more time at your establishment. So I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding in terms of ROI. That it's our responsibility to communicate that, and hopefully we can do a good job and help our customers or prospective customers really understand why it's important to invest in cloud technology and how they really can save money and get a return on that initial investment.
I would say go back to the guest and think about the experience that you want to provide. What do you need? What systems do you need? What technology do you need? What systems do you want to be able to integrate? What's the functionality there? And then make sure you've got the provider that works or could possibly work with the type of other suppliers that you need. And another question I would ask particularly with for cloud-based PMS is, should you decide to leave that company for whatever reason, then do you have access to that data, that historical data? So that would be a question I would ask, to say, what happens if I leave you the data that you have, which is no longer on my hotel server? So do I get access to that? And you will get access. There'll be a data dump or a read-only access, but that's something that as a hotel I would want to know as to what happens should I move on. And yeah, just what do you want to get out of this system, and what do you want it to do? Is it going to be an upsell tool? Is it going to be more focused on channel management and OTA and whatever it is that you need? And is that functionality there? Is it possible that there are systems out there that you can connect with?
And we are now rounding out our discussion, but I want to ask you guys a couple pointed questions about the industry as a whole, where it's heading. Where will it be in 5 to 10 years? Will cloud technology be a necessity for the hospitality industry?
I think so, absolutely. I mean, not only for the hotel industry, I think globally the software industry is fastly moving into the cloud, or I don't think there's any new inventions anymore that happen with license-based software. All of it happens with the cloud. I think just for the sheer fact that, let's say 20 years ago or 30 years ago, the first PCs came out and the entire functionality of the PC run on a floppy disk. Today, you need, access of cloud servers or service to run anything you want to do. But there is so much more that you can do now than you can do 30 years ago or 10 years ago, even, or even 5 years ago, that it's impossible to control all of that by yourself with license-based premises installed software. You need third-party services, not necessarily just the software. You basically need to lease the functions and the services you want rather than buying the software you need to enable your business and be successful with your business. So to me, cloud's only going to grow. We're going to see more and more functions. We're going to probably see cloud applications focus on certain components of the travel experience rather than trying to do it all, but they're going to be tightly integrated with each other, enabling a pleasant experience for your guests.
Yeah, I would totally agree with what Jos has just said. Yeah, I've got nothing to add to that.
I think that for restaurants and hotels, it's interesting to think of it as an option, or is this something that I should invest in the next 5 years? But I think it's very much going to be driven by the consumers themselves. With everything going mobile and technology, evolving at the pace it is, expectations are high, and they're going to want to have an experience that's completely connected. They're going to want to make a reservation at a restaurant and automatically be known or notify Uber, be picked up in an Uber, be taken to the restaurant, have the actual restaurant understand what they've ordered in the past. So I think that the actual consumer itself is going to drive this adoption and drive the need to have a cloud platform. And then 10 years from now, I think it's just going to be the norm. We're going to be talking about a completely different thing at that point.
All right, that was certainly a great discussion. We do have a question here that I'd like you guys to answer. What is the biggest benefit of cloud technology to a hotel or restaurant, and how do you justify that?
I think flexibility, cost, and ability to integrate mobile into the guest journey that you have in your hotel or in your restaurant are the biggest benefits. And you can simply justify that, simple is a big word, but you can justify that by providing offers, as simple as early check-in and late check-out that if implemented well without too much effort can, provide an ROI on software as a service that you buy from, for example, your PMS or POS provider at the same time. But I think more important, and people should not always look at the hard ROI when it comes to offers, but they should also look at the soft ROI on creating guest satisfaction and all those kind of things, which Mike mentioned earlier. Guests are going to expect a strong mobile aspect anywhere they go and whatever they do. That doesn't mean they don't want to talk to people in the hotel anymore, but they do want to be able to do a lot of stuff on their smartphones, and that does require a cloud platform. And when you can provide that, your ROI is going to basically be in returning guests and some additional revenue that you can generate. I think another important aspect to me would be that when hotels try to look for a cloud provider, many of those cloud providers are just out there for a couple of years. They don't have all the functionality the legacy systems have, but they do have the forward thinking, and they do have the capability of adding functionality at rapid pace. And most importantly, they have the functionality to integrate very easily with alternate and other systems. So I think your justification has to be around ease of use and making sure you can get everything in place and making sure you can provide mobile to your guests and or staff at the same time.
I think one thing that is worth noting also in terms of investment and that return is that it's not a huge commitment often with cloud platforms. You don't have to pay a lot up front, so it's something that if for example, you're working with an on-premise solution and your contract ends and you're looking to evaluate other systems, but you don't want to make this huge upfront investment, you can actually start slow, go on a month-to-month basis, and test it out. That's what's great about cloud platforms, especially Lightspeed. I mean, if you have iPads in your business, you're using them for other services, you can simply test this out for a month or two, see how you like it. If it's not something that works for you or you don't think you're ready, you can move back to an on-premise solution and maybe a few years down the line move to something that's more cloud-based. So it's low commitment also. The return on investment is often based on the fact that I have a huge upfront investment and I want to know right away how am I going to get that back. But I think that that's a benefit also that shouldn't be overlooked. Is that there is a lower commitment and more ease of trying things out before you jump in.
One other thing to remember from a hotel's perspective is time and how much time you save when systems are integrated and you have information there together, pulling it from one place rather than 3 or 4 different places. And that time that you're saving means that you have staff then who can invest that time in a much better way for your business. So to me, that would be one of the big benefits that we need to think about, how much time you're going to save by having these systems.
That rounds out our discussion, our webinar, Cloud Technology, a Game Changer for Hospitality. I want to thank our panelists for joining us with their incredible insight, and I hope you guys out there, our audience, learned something new today. We'll take something away from this. If you have any additional questions, if you want to follow up, please feel free. Send your questions or comments, concerns to info@stayintouch.com, and we will get back to you. Thank you guys again for joining us, and this webinar recording, as well as the PowerPoint, will be available to all of our attendees. So you'll get a follow-up email within 24 hours giving you all this information. And you can always go back, share it with anyone, and visit our website. Thank you guys again for joining.